Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews. Today is a very exciting day because it's the first time we get to take a look at a new Eofauna figure in quite a long time. It's been a very long time since we had a new one since last year, so it's a very much anticipated figure in my opinion. And being the second dinosaur in the line of Eofauna figures, it's even more so exciting, although I would love to see them create some more prehistoric mammals because I think they really do excel at prehistoric mammals. But honestly, looking at these two right here, these very cool looking Triceratops figures, I'm really impressed, honestly, straight out of the box. Like, they're much nicer than I expected them to be. Paint wise, is kind of one of the things I was really interested in because previously we only had the Giganotosaurus from Eofauna as far as dinosaurs go, and the paint scheme on that was beautiful, but there wasn't that much that needed to be done to the paint scheme on that figure. So I was really intrigued to see how these ones were going to turn out as far as the paint application because they had pretty flashy looking paint schemes, which you can obviously see right here. And honestly, they look really, really good, like exceptionally well done in person, much better than I expected them to be. They look gorgeous paint-wise, like the actual application of the paint, which is one of the things I was concerned about, does look really nice, really natural on the figures, and they've added some nice dark washes to the figures as well to make sure all the detail pops, but also makes the figures look generally lifelike and realistic. And one of the other more exciting aspects of these figures, and potentially the most exciting aspect, is the fact that this is not based on the more common Triceratops horridus. This is actually a different species of Triceratops that we don't ever see get figures, so that as well is really exciting if you ask me. But honestly, both figures here look incredible at first glance, so let's go ahead and get a closer look at both right now. So as far as the closer look goes, we'll look at this one here, the more colorful of the two, I would say. And as far as the detailing aspect, you could see how beautiful that scale detail is up here on the face of the Triceratops. And again, like I was stating a little bit earlier, there's a nice dark wash that's been applied to the figure, which makes that detail pop really beautifully. And you could see a lot of coloration up here on the head sculpt of the Triceratops. You could see some like black stripes here and there. You have kind of like a creamy color, like a khaki right here. You also have a nice yellow, as well as some darker variations of brown up here. It's like mixtures of browns and blacks. And then up here on the frill, you can see it transition to some beautiful blues and reds, which looks really cool the way that they've painted that. You can also see actually some blacks creeping in there as well, or like some dark browns. So there's a lot of color variation included on the head sculpt of this Triceratops. You can see the nostrils sculpted out really beautifully up here. You can also see the detail in the beak is really nicely brought out with a dark wash as well, like we saw in the face. It's painted with a nice dark gray, as are the horns of the Triceratops, which all looks really, really nice. The inside of the mouth looks fantastic. You can see some really nice paintwork in there as far as like the coloration goes. It's a really nice natural coloration for the inside of the mouth of a dinosaur. And you can also see the teeth are sculpted out and painted in the mouth. You can see that on both the upper and lower jaws. Really beautiful work there in the mouth area of the figure. Coming up into the eyes, you can see the eyes are really, really nicely painted as well. There's kind of like a white ring that runs around the eye, and then you've got like a yellow eye and a black pupil. The eye does seem to have a gloss coat, or at least the pupil does, so it does have a bit of a realistic eye shine. And that's a nice small eye to be painted as nicely and carefully as it is, so that's really quite impressive as well. And again, moving back into the frill, you could continue to see the beautiful scale detail, but this is one of the areas I was really concerned with how good and how realistic it would end up looking on the actual figure, because there's a lot of different colors mixed together back here. And you can see it looks really, really good, really natural on the figure, and that is really exciting to me because, again, I had some concern over how nice and natural it would look on the figure paint-wise, but the actual application of the paint looks super lifelike and realistic on the figure. Looking over here at the opposing side of the head, again, it looks just as beautiful as the previous side did. All the paint looks really nice. That dark wash makes all the detail pop in extraordinarily nice fashion, and sculpt-wise, it's really well done. You can see the insanely long horns up here on the top of the Triceratops, and you can see it starts out with a nice gray and then transitions to like a brown or like a light brown, and then there's also some dark browns there at the tips of the horns. So some nice color variation on that area as well. And then you can also see the dark wash creeping through, making sure that you take note to the nice cracks and crevices included within the horns of the Triceratops. Coming down here into the throat, you can see some really nice skin texture, skin detail in the throat region. Again, brought out with that nice dark wash, but you can see lots of creasing going on, even right here, back behind the head. As we move back into the neck, that looks really realistic and beautifully done as far as the paintwork goes. You can see the upper part of the dinosaur in this area has a nice dark brown. Some more creasing going on right back here behind the frill. The actual detailing of the rear of the frill is beautifully done as well. You can see some really nice large scales back there, as well as some nice skin texture right there as you get closer to the body, kind of like some wrinkles and stuff in the skin. And you can see that that nice brown transitions to kind of a lighter brown here, but it's a really nice transition. Like, it looks very realistic the way this paint application again has been applied. You can pick up on some osteoderms here and there throughout the entire figure. And the skin detail, the scale detail is just insanely beautiful. Look at how nice that looks over here on the side of the Triceratops. It just really, really looks about as gorgeous, I think, as scale detail can look, and yet again brought out perfectly with that dark wash. And the fact that Eofauna has included that dark wash on this figure is just super exciting, because I love when companies include dark washes on their figures. I feel like it really amps up the overall realism of the figures, and that's definitely exactly how I feel about this Triceratops right here. Now, one area I wasn't exactly sold on in the promotional images were these brighter legs. I'm definitely not a big fan of that area because I just don't think that it meshes well with the rest of the coloration of the figure. I feel like it's kind of out of place. However, I will say that here in person, it's actually way nicer than I expected it to be, and I think it ties together pretty well thanks to that dark wash. It actually helps to make it look a bit more realistic, a bit more lifelike. I will say it still looks out of place if you ask me. Definitely something that personally I would have changed on the model, but at the same time, it actually has managed to look much better than I expected it to. And again, that scale detail continues to look incredible. As you move down that leg, you can see some really nice creasing right here. They've done a great job as far as like really showing the movement of the animal throughout the sculpt. I can see that already. And then coming down into the foot sculpt looks really, really nice. You have some beautifully painted nails, which the nails do seem to have a gloss coat to them, giving them that very realistic shine like real nails would have. You can also see the elbow is present back here. Some more nice creasing in the wrist area. And then coming back up into the stomach region, again, a little bit of skin folding going on right here especially. You can see the skin bunching up as that rear leg is pushing into the body. You can also see a nice brown run up here and kind of separate the lighter brown here, that beige-like brown from the khaki-like brown, and then there's this darker brown that runs through. Again, just giving a little paint variation. You can also see that brown right here in that area. Coming up here, you can pick up on the hip bone, quite nicely elaborated from the skin. Again, more incredible scale detail, some beautiful muscle tone displayed, but it's not overly elaborated or anything. It looks really nice and natural the way it has been applied, and you can see some more skin stretching off of the tail, again, really nicely showing the very cool pose and the movement here of the dinosaur seam deal right here with some nice creasing in the joint of the knee, the back of the knee. You can see the knee somewhat present here in the front. Really nice scale detail again as we move down that leg, down into that foot sculpt. That foot sculpt is really beautiful looking. You can see some nice scoots down to the toes, beautifully painted nails, again, nice and carefully painted. Eofauna is really impressing me, making quite an impressive comeback, I guess you could kind of say, as it's been so long since we had a figure here with this Triceratops. It is extremely well done. You can see some more nice creasing back here in the tail, and again, the nice darker and lighter browns and how they play off of each other really well back here as we lead out the length of the tail. The skin texture continues to look incredible. You have a nice curve to the tail, but it's nothing that's overly sharp and not something that I could feel a Triceratops could actually pull off in real life. It's definitely a natural curve. You can see some more creasing here in the neck region and the throat region of the Triceratops. Again, beautiful paintwork, very nice and natural paintwork as we move back into the body. The scale detail, again, is pretty much mind-blowing back here in the stomach region of the Triceratops. And you can actually see like some darker variations of color, like the darker brown up here. I feel like it's actually mixed with like blacks. So it helps to give it, again, a very realistic appearance as far as having like slightly different tones of color included there, something you would absolutely see on a real animal. And you can see that brown runs down here into the front leg. Again, some more nice sculpt and detail. You can see some more creasing right here behind the front leg, showing off some of the movement. And the transition between that color to the nice bluish coloration here on the legs is actually really nice and smooth as well. Again, the muscle tone here on the front leg is nicely displayed. You have the elbow yet again back there, and the foot sculpt again looks insanely nicely done. Nicely painted nails, very, very carefully. Beautiful skin texture and scale detail throughout the entire front leg, as well as just generally a really nice appearance to that leg. You can really see like the structure of the leg quite beautifully displayed in the sculpt. And then coming up here into the stomach region, again, some more really nice scale detail, as well as some more beautiful skin detail as far as like the movement of the dinosaur. Like you can really see the skin stretching all throughout the stomach region, especially as this leg is pulled back so far. It's quite drastically pulling that skin back, and you can see how nicely sculpted in that is as far as what Eofauna has done with this Triceratops. And again, that dark wash allows all that detail to pop beautifully. As we lead back here into the rear leg, you could see a slightly different shade of brown that kind of runs the course of the hip right here, and it's also the same shade down here as far as like this kind of design and a few stripes and stuff. But you can see the beautiful wash making all that detail pop really nicely. Some more nice skin wrinkles and stuff back here on the rear of the leg as we move down here into the lower part of the leg, into that bluish area, and you can see again a nice curve in the foot. And you can also see again the scale detail continues to look really beautiful as we move out the length of the tail. The paintwork and everything looks incredible, really nice, really realistic. And then here on the underside, you can see lots of really nice detailing as we move along the underside of the Triceratops. Gorgeous scale detail, again, all beautifully brought out with that really nice dark wash. There's even some nice detailing here to the underside of the feet and everything. So this Triceratops is absolutely gorgeous. And then we have the second variant here, and now that we've taken a look at the first one sculpt-wise, we really only need to take a look at the differences between the two, which would be the paintwork here on this figure. And you can see a really nice light, kind of an off-white to the face, and you can also see it right here. It's beautifully as well brought to life with a nice dark wash, similar to what we had just seen on the previous Triceratops. And then you can see a nice dark kind of a black, or actually more of like a dark blue. Now that I look at it in the light a little better, it's like a dark blue that runs across the horn right here and then down onto the beak, and it looks really, really cool. I actually quite like that. And then you can also see that dark blue run down here onto the side of the face around the eye, but the eye itself is kind of elaborated with a lighter coloration, an off-white, similar to what we see here near the nostrils and stuff. Like you can see this nice light white. We have that similar white right there. Beautifully painted eye, again nice and carefully painted. Painted with an orange, given a black pupil, and also has a bit of a glossy look to it, so it shines quite nicely. And then you can see like some orangish red sort of picking up here and just designing through here and there, as well as actually some hints of brown have been kind of dry brushed over the dark blue, just to make sure that we have some really nice color variation to the figure. I really quite like the paintwork here on this one as well. Again, a very nice, very realistic appearance as far as the paintwork goes, and the paintwork is all applied really naturally. Again, it doesn't look like paint on a figure, it genuinely looks like body color, which is really nice. And I actually quite like the fact that it differentiates itself from each side. Like you can see that the way that the red is applied here, and then over here it's different. It doesn't look the same on both sides, which is something that you could potentially have seen on, again, a real living dinosaur. I really quite like that as well. And then you have the horns up here, which are beautifully painted, beautifully weathered. You can see it's painted with an off-white, similar coloration to what we have here on the face. Transitions very realistically and smoothly to darker tips, but you can also see it's kind of been dry brushed over to make sure that the detail pops, but also to give it that very realistic, again, weathered appearance. I really, really like the horns on this one. And then as we move back into the body, you start to see that darker blue again continue to run the course of the body. It runs down here in the lower part of the stomach and then up here in front of the rear leg. And then you also have a variation of brown right here and here, which is a beautiful shade of brown. And then you also see it transition to that darker blue down here on the legs as well. So like the darker blue shows up pretty much throughout the entire figure, but sporadically all over the place, it seems. And then you can see it transition from this brown right here to an alternate shade of brown, and there's actually like some hints of even a darker brown included in certain spots, kind of like some nice highlighting that's been done with a darker brown, again giving it a very realistic appearance as far as the actual skin tone goes. And then you can see that blue show up back here again on the rear of the leg. It seems like the legs are pretty much encased in the darker blue. That's definitely the way it seems at this point. And then you can also see that the nails are painted with a variation of a brown, nicely glossed yet again, just like we had seen on the previous figure. Looks really, really good. And then once we run out here onto the tail, you can see it transitions back from this brown to the blue, and there's a very abrupt transition, like it's a straight down line as far as the transition between those colors go. Looking at the inside of the mouth, on this one we have kind of a dark pink. You can see the teeth again are painted really nicely, and it's really impressive how good the actual paintwork is on these figures. Like, it's really carefully done. There's no sloppiness that I can see at all on these figures in any way, shape, or form. And you can also see actually a gloss coat inside the mouth, which is definitely nice to see. That was on the previous version as well, but I just, for some reason, totally missed that part, did not mention it. Again, the dark wash makes the coloration look super lifelike here on the face of the Triceratops. And color-wise, again, you're not going to see too much difference over here. You can actually see a little bit of a different shade of brown back here for the back of the frill. It's almost like a reddish brown, which is really cool to see. I almost missed that completely because you don't see that here on the front of the frill. That's only back there on the rear of the frill. Really nice tone of brown that they've used back there. But again, paint-wise, you're not really going to see anything different over here in comparison to what we had just seen on the previous side, but that also means that it's gorgeous over here, just like we had seen on the previous side. Really nice and carefully painted throughout the entire figure. Beautiful paint application, beautiful smooth transitions between the colors, and an overall unbelievable sculpt. These Triceratops figures are absolutely beautiful. And then, as per usual with the Eofauna figures, you have a really cool card that comes with your figure, sporting some incredible artwork that does seem to include both of the different variants here of the Triceratops together in their natural habitat, looking gorgeous. Also some information down here, and then a silhouette of the Triceratops in comparison to how big it would be with a human being. And then if we look on the back, we've got the Eofauna logo, and then you also have this little guy over here as well, which is telling us that this is in 1/35th scale, and again, the Triceratops. Really, really cool. But as far as a size goes, actually, I guess we'll measure this one here. But lengthwise for the Triceratops, the horn would probably be the furthest point. You're going to see it come in at about the 8.5-inch range, or about the 21.5 centimeter range, somewhere in that area. And then for a height to the tip of that horn, it is pretty much on 5 inches actually, right there on the dot, or about the 13 centimeter range, maybe a little under 13 centimeters. For a size comparison, there is the Eofauna Triceratops next to the Eofauna Giganotosaurus, and you can definitely see, again, comparison size-wise, that these Triceratops figures are actually quite large. Of course, they're not as large as the beautiful Giganotosaurus back there, but they still are extremely well done and nicely sized. So I actually expected them to be a little bit smaller, so I am quite happy and quite relieved that they do sport, again, a pretty darn nice size overall. And then for our second size comparison, you've got Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, and Robert Muldoon from the Mattel Jurassic World toy line next to our Eofauna Triceratops. And again, I think in comparison to these guys, you could definitely see that they sport a really nice size overall. I would say it's a strong medium approaching a large size range for these figures. Very, very nice in every aspect. So these brand new Eofauna Triceratops figures are absolutely incredible, just like every single Eofauna release has been so far. I'm really sad, however, that they're actually here now, because that means now it's going to be a long time before we get another Eofauna figure. At least we had the images of this and we knew it was coming, so we were all hyped for the release. But now that it's here, although I am super happy to have it in my collection, it's also a little bit disheartening, because now it means that it's going to be quite some time before we get another Eofauna release. I think that's the only real downside to Eofauna that I can think of, is the fact that the releases are so few and far between, and it just takes an extremely long time to get another figure released. I wish they were kind of like other companies, where they would release like a number of figures throughout the year, and we would like have a reveal earlier in the year or even late in the previous year to kind of get us hyped for what's coming, so then we can at least be excited about stuff. But at this point, we're just kind of left in the dark, having no idea what is coming next or when it's coming. But regardless, that's just a little gripe about Eofauna. But as far as these figures go, these figures are gorgeous. Really, really beautifully detailed, like highly detailed is putting it mildly. Sporting some incredible scale detail throughout the entire figure, some gorgeous skin texture, some beautiful sculpt and detail as far as like really nicely showing the movement. Again, everything on this is about as highly detailed as a dinosaur figure gets. And another aspect to the actual sculpt that I really love is the positioning of the body, because again, there are two Triceratops which we can quite clearly see, and they seem to be continuously positioned in images and stuff, like dueling together, and that is exactly the way that the poses of the figures are sculpted out, so it really makes sense as far as the dueling pose, and it makes sense having two different variants of the Triceratops. So the rear legs are kind of pushing, looking like they're trying to force their way into winning the duel, but the front legs are kind of like planted, like they're trying to stay steadfast and make sure that they don't get pushed back to lose the duel. So that's a really, really cool pose, a really nice aspect to the models overall. Again, really making the entire dueling scene look about as realistic as it gets. And then you have the super exciting aspect of this not being Triceratops horridus, so we have an alternate version of Triceratops, a different species of Triceratops that doesn't often get a figure, or actually ever has gotten a figure as far as I know, so that as well is really cool. It's one thing that's pretty exciting about Eofauna, as they don't always pick the most obvious species of animals to create, and that as well is really, really awesome. Paint-wise, both Triceratops figures are painted beautifully, and that was kind of my one concern coming into these figures, would be how nice the paint work looked on the figures, because the promotional images having, that really flashy look to the paint schemes had me concerned as to how natural it would look on the actual figures, but they look really, really good. Like, the paintwork on them looks about as lifelike and as natural as it gets, and Eofauna has done a great job of picking out two really nice, kind of flashy paint schemes, but including really nice natural tones to apply them, so they've managed to give them a flashy look, but in a really realistic and natural way. And all of the actual application of the paint, again, looks like body color. It doesn't look like paint on a figure, and they've included beautiful dark washes on both in various different areas to make sure the detail pops, but also makes the dinosaurs kind of look like they're, alive, a little bit dirty, very realistic, weathered horns and everything. Like, they've just done a tremendous job overall on both the sculpt and paint aspects of the figures. They're just as top-notch of a release as it gets. So as usual, if you are interested in picking these figures up, I will include a link in the description to where you can do that. Make sure you head on over to Dan's Dinosaurs and order them there, and if you do, make sure you tell them that Andy sent you from Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, as that does help out the channel. But make sure again that if you are going to pick these up, which I highly recommend you do, you check the description. There will be a link there to take you straight to Dan's Dinosaurs. Make sure to give me a mention there, and make sure that you purchase yourself these beautiful Eofauna Triceratops. But also, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.